Welcome to my review of the 2025 Xadv 750 by Honda. I've had this bike now for about 6 weeks and I have travelled, let me check, I think about 4,500 kilometres. I'm sure I can find that information here somewhere. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every time somebody subscribes, it really helps my channel grow. Have you subscribed? Why not? Yes, I have travelled 4,800 kilometres in about the last 6 weeks, as I say. So what can I tell you about this bike? Who's it for? Why would you want to buy one? And what are the pros and cons? So firstly, I think the elephant in the room is going to be, is it a motorbike or is it a scooter? And technically, it's definitely a scooter. Certainly in the Netherlands where I live, it's in your documents as you buy the bike, it does say that it's a scooter, but it's got a lot of motorbikeness about it. It's got motorbike forks, motorbike brakes, motorbike drive chain, it's chain driven. It's got the sort of swinging arm and the suspension in the same configuration as a motorbike. Your handlebar setup is more or less the same as a motorbike. The only thing where it starts to get a bit different really is when we start talking about gears. This bike has got a DCT gearbox, so it means that it's got 6 gears that it automatically changes for you. So it's got a dual clutch transmission, and there aren't really, as far as I can see, any drawbacks to this system, because you can still manually change gear with these controls up here, which means you can still more or less ride it like a motorbike. The only difference is probably how you sit on the bike. So because it's a sort of scooter, you've got these running boards along the bottom. You've got a couple of positions, so you could put your feet up a little bit like this or here, for example, so you can move around and help yourself get comfortable. But also you've got these pegs on the back, and although these are an extra, it means that you can stand up on the bike and ride it off-road. It is called an ADV after all, so it should be able to go off-road. And I have taken it mildly off-road so far up in Sweden, so there's a video, I'll put a link to that. And as far as I'm concerned, the type of riding most ADV riders are going to do, this is capable of doing it, and probably with a bit of modification, it's more capable than most people give it the first glance of. So who's it for? That's a good question. Who is this bike for? You can ride these on an A2 license. I believe they do a restricted version, or maybe it is an A2 bike. I'm fairly sure it's an A2 bike. So it means that entry-level riders can ride this. It also, you know, it's got enough power, 60 horsepower or so. Believe you me, it's plenty. And experienced riders, of which I am, I'm 45 and I've been riding for over 25 years, and I've had all kinds of bikes, race bikes, touring bikes, off-road bikes, all kinds of stuff. And for me, this is one of the best bikes I've ever owned, and that's saying something because I've owned quite a few, probably 50 plus. Now my reasonings behind that are its usability, its functionality. It's, in my opinion, it's like having a GS but cheaper and almost as good. The reason why a GS would pip this to the punch is the fact that the GS has been around for such a long time, and it gets incrementally better and better and better and better and better. This, however, has only been around since I think 2017, so it's already quite a fair amount of time. 5, 6, 7 years in its sort of increments means that the gearbox has got better, the positioning of the you know, the way you sit on the bike has got better, you know, the locations of everything. The dashboard has got better. You know, it's got cruise control now. You know, it's got pretty much everything that you need. You can put a top box on it. You can put side panniers on it. It's got hand guards. These are not the standard ones, but it comes with hand guards. I mean, it's basically a little mini GS without all the extra things that, in my opinion, you don't really need on a GS. For example, the luggage system on the newest 1300 GS, it's just over designed. It's just no need for it. So I think it's a value for money GS. That's perhaps how I'd advertise it to people. And I would love to do a side-by-side comparison. So if any of you out there have got a GS and you want to get together with me, and we're going to do a short tour, some city riding, a little bit of off-roading, what luggage we can carry, because actually I think that most people would be quite surprised how well this would do against a GS. So back to what I was saying, who's it for? I think it's pretty much for anyone. You can use this in the city to go to work. It's very nimble. It's still a scooter after all. And because you've got these sort of motorbike handlebars rather than those sort of inbuilt scooter bars, it's very easy to maneuver around traffic and etc., you know, in and out of things. It's relatively narrow, it's relatively high up, so you've got this good vision and you can get through the tight spaces. Plus you can put your top box on the back, put your laptop in there, whatever, and you've got some space under the seat. So the type of person it's going to be for, I don't think there's any restrictions. Anybody could find a good use for this bike. Now, what are the things I love about this bike? And I think the main thing that stands out is just how easy it is to ride. It's so motorbikey, but in the same way it's also so scootery. Those of you that have never ridden a scooter won't know, but those of you that have will know about the smaller wheels and the way that the bike sort of turns, and it's slightly different to a motorbike in that sense. But because this is somewhere in between, you know, the wheels are relatively big for a scooter, but they're still not motorbike sized, so you really can flick about and chuck it about. And because of that, it doesn't need to have 150 horsepower or 105, for example. So I would say most middleweight bikes are between 700cc and 900cc nowadays. And those bikes have between sort of 90 and 120 horsepower. And that's plenty. You don't even really need 100 horsepower these days. These bikes are so good. So what else can I tell you? I think that what I'll do is I will give a bit of a breakdown of the technical things in the description below. Nobody really needs to know about the size of the disc brakes and whatnot. And then I think what we'll do now is quickly just run over the functionality of the bike. Right, let's do a quick walk round of the bike. I'm sure I'm going to forget some things, but we'll give it a go. So we start off, I think, with the styling. And this 2025 bike has had some modifications from the previous generation. And I think that it does look a little bit more modern, a little bit more sleek. And one of the things that they have changed is the headlights. It's now got permanent daytime running lights, and built into those are your indicators, which I can show you. So apparently it's the first motorbike to have that, which I think is a nice little touch. It just sort of gets rid of the indicators off the front of the bike. So another thing that I think that Honda have worked on is the screen and its functionality and also its shape. So that's what it looks like in its lowest position, and from there you have, I think, so that's, we call that position 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when you've got it in the position you want it, you just snap that shut. The good thing about this system is that when you're riding, it is also possible to quite simply adjust that screen, which is, I think, obviously many bikes have got an electric screen now, but that would add weight, and that works pretty well in my opinion. So the screen, I will say, is very effective. I suspect when you start getting over 6 feet tall, however, you might need to consider a taller screen or having an extra piece along the top to just kick that air over the top of you. What I have noticed about this bike is you don't get what I think is quite annoying on some of these big touring bikes. You get the wind that goes over your head and sort of punches you in the back. You don't get that on this bike, which I like. So let's talk about the controls quickly. So I think the quality of the controls up on the dash on this bike is very good, and I'll just run you through them quickly. So you've got the grey button here for upshifting, and the grey button down there for downshifting. Then you've got your lights, which is normal, high beam, low beam, and a flash. The mode changes the mode on the dash once it's running to go through from sport to, you know, rain, etc. Horn indicators, which are self-cancelling as an option on the screen. This is your control for the menu once you've got the screen on, and you've also got your cruise control. Cruise control is turned on and off over there, and then set and resume is on the left hand side on this button. And obviously to cancel, you can pull any brake, or you can twist the throttle the other way. It's got a little reverse action, and that will release the cruise control. So on this side, you've got a handbrake. So once you've got your bike on the side stand and you pull that, you actually see down here, you've got 2 calipers on the back brake, and the bottom one is your handbrake. So if you're parked on a bit of a slope, it's perfect, because that way your bike won't fall off your stand. Over to the right hand side of the bike now, you've got your engine start and your stop. The cruise control we've covered, and this is your hazard lights, and then this is essentially your gearbox. So you've got neutral, drive, and if you press it again, manual. Once you're in manual, you're obviously using your shifting buttons to go up and down. And incidentally, this little switch and this little switch are backlit, so it means that at night you can find those 2 switches. The only thing left really is this little controller here. Now push for your ignition to come on, and twist for your ignition to go off. Then you've got your lock, your seat lock there, which allows you to lift the seat up, exposing a bit of storage. There's another video I've got about that. And then this lifts your fuel cap, and then you've got this little fuel cap, and you're ready to fuel up. What I will say about the inside of the seat is that there is actually a little light. Hopefully you can see that. It's there. And also there is a USB-C charger point, so you can put your cable in there, and whilst the bike is going along, that will charge up your phone or whatever it is you want to charge. Obviously if the bike is off, that has no power, so that's a nice little feature. This seat is the comfort seat, which in my opinion is well worth the money for an upgrade. I've got a video on that. The other thing that I was very interested before I bought the bike was this little cubby hole. Again, I've got a little video on that, and literally you can barely use it for anything. I just keep some sunglasses in there. It doesn't lock, so you can't put anything of value in there. And what else would you need to know? So yes, the riding the bike is quite simple because there's no foot controls. It means that your front brake is in the standard position and your back brake is now your clutch lever. So in that sense, it's very scooterish. I think what I'll do now is I'll just quickly run you through a little bit about the screen. So start up, and there's quite a lot of stuff you can do with this screen. So let's little scroll through. So the first section that comes up here, you go into that, and I'm using this little toggle here, and that will show me a number of things. So there's my total mileage, and then trip A, trip B, and average, and then that's showing you what mode I'm in. So at the moment I'm in the standard mode, and it's also showing me that what different things are selected in that mode. So coming back out of there, just go left and left. So go back in there, and then the heated grips, which are, these are the Honda ones, and they're integrated, so it means that I can control them. And I've got 5 levels of heat, which I find they are plenty hot enough. And then we have got your trip A and trip B. This is how you reset them in this little page. And then you've got your settings, and this is where it starts getting interesting. So we've got quite a lot of settings in here. We've got, you can make your own user modes. You can change the shift point, turn on and off your self-cancelling indicators. That's your daytime running light. You can turn that off, so you've got your headlights on. This is to automatically reset your trip, and there is a little function on the dashboard that shows, it pops up down here somewhere, that when you're not using too much fuel, a little eco light pops up, so that's that one. Then you've got all kinds of different stuff on your display. So you've got different, you see that on the right there, you've got different sort of layouts, 3 of those. And then I think the one I'm using is the top one, bar. You can change your brightness, obviously, auto and manual. And incidentally, look there, you've got 8 levels of brightness, so you can see what's happening. And I think it needs to be an auto, that's best. You can change from white to black, or have it automatically changing at night. Your favourite info, so that's the stuff that you're going to see on the dashboard when it's in its home setting, and you can choose a number of different things in there and in the second location as well. So there's an awful lot going on. Then there's a favourite button, which I have set to be the grip heater. And I'll show you that in a moment. And then you can turn on or off the air temperature. General, you've got your date and time, your units. So if you're travelling abroad, you can go from kilometres to miles or vice versa. Language, default reset, and you can also set your phone to this bike. So the way you would do that is literally go in here, set it to your phone, and then you can control it from there. You also can see that you can see what needs doing. It also tells you, and I don't understand why, but you can see the battery voltage here, but you can't see that at any other time. You have to go into this point to find it. Equipment that's installed, I don't have any fog lights, but I do have the heated grips, and then your system information. So that's everything that you can see on there. You've got quite a bit of information on here. The only thing I think it's lacking is it won't tell you your range. So Honda, if you're listening, we'd love to know our range. How many kilometres can we still travel before we need to fuel up? So at the moment, I've managed to do 300 kilometres to a tank before, and I probably still had about 50 to go, but that is taking it very easy on the motorway. So I still don't really know how far I can go on a full tank, but maybe we'll do a test one day to find out. So a last little walk round of the bike. We've got these passenger foot pegs which fold up into the bike. I think it's quite a nice styling part. So all that's left to do really is to go for a ride, and then I can run you through what the gearbox is like, what it's like to use the controls, the comfort of the bike, and then perhaps a few other little bits like what it's like to ride with the foot pegs and how much protection you get from the screen, etc. So I think now's the time to go for a ride. Right, I've got my phone mounted up on the dash now. That's not normal, but I just thought I'd run you through. Let's go for a little ride. So let's see how things go. You push, that turns the dash on, and then start the bike there, and then click over there. Now we're in drive, in first gear, and all you have to do is twist and go like a scooter. So which way to go? Let's go this way. So the first thing I can tell you is that it's very windy in the Netherlands. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to lift up the screen. So it's just a matter of popping that little latch down, and then I can bring the screen up and lock it back in. And now we've got a bit of a wind and rain protection, seeing as it's a tiny bit of rain in the air at the moment. And I suppose what most people want to know about is the gearbox. So if you keep your little eyes peeled up here, you can see it scrolling through the gears for us without having to do anything ourselves. And it's very smooth, so I'm going to just gently, ever so gently have the throttle on, and you'll see it just going up, and then as I brake for the corner it just drops down. And everything seems to just work very, very well on this DCT gearbox. We are in the normal or standard driving mode, and you can tell that by this little symbol up here on the left, and just looks like a little person on a bike. And the way you're going to change the mode is over here on the left with the mode button. Flick it away from you and you'll see the little symbol changing on the dashboard. It's flashing, and if I throttle off, we're now in sport mode. And what that does is it basically just sort of holds the gears a bit more, and it means that you're more ready if you want to throttle on quickly. So we could just, and it drops down a gear straight away, which I'm pretty sure you saw, and it's keeping me in quite a low gear now. So that's what sport does. And then you've got rain mode, which obviously just cuts the power down a bit, probably also gives you more ABS on the brakes. The next one is a gravel, which allows for more, the rear wheel can be locked up, I think, and you can do, and it'll allow the rear wheel to spin on off-road surfaces. And then we've got a user 1 and a user 2, and then back round to our standard mode. You will also see, just get around this little junction, that when I'm gently accelerating, let's just wait for it, you should see a little eco, there it is, a little eco sign, which showing me that I'm obviously in an eco amount of fuel to speed ratio, something like that. Is that really necessary? No, I think a lot of cars have that as well. but I suppose it will guide you to look after your fuel economy if that's something that you're interested in. So another thing I've noticed about the gearbox is it seems to know when you're turning around a corner and will drop gears for you. So I'm in 6th now, and obviously I'm coming up to this junction. There's no one about, no need to indicate. It's come down to 3rd gear, and then as I see, it just tipped into 2nd. It's almost like it knows that, you know, the sensors on the bike are getting so good now that it really is changing gear for you at much more appropriate timing. So what else to run you through? So we've done the modes a little bit. We've got daytime running lights on at the moment, but if it was night time, I've got my high and low beam over there and a flash. And what else do you need to know? I mean, realistically, the only thing that's left to do is to show you what this bike's like in manual mode. So the way you do that is you click over here, and now you've got an M up on the dashboard, and then down here you've got a little flappy, and up there you've got a little flappy. So if I knock down, and it is pretty much instant, so you can sort of see that yourself. And it doesn't matter if I'm throttling on or off, it will change gear both up and down whilst the throttle is on, and if I completely come off the throttle, it will still change down and up. Car behind me now, so I better get on with it. So that's the manual mode. And then I suppose the other thing to mention is that, let's go back into normal drive. So now we're just in automatic mode, and what I can do is I can still knock down the gears in manual when I want to. So we're now in automatic, so up we go through the gears. That's doing it automatically, and now if I want to slow down, bang bang bang, I've done that myself. Obviously the bike will do it for you, so let's go back up to 5th, and now I'll brake, bang bang bang. So it's doing it for you, but for example the bike doesn't know that there's a corner here, so I've just tapped it down into 3rd to give myself a bit more control, and then I can go back up the gears, and then once I leave it alone, it will take over and carry on as it was. So it's quite an intelligent gearbox system in my opinion, and having spoken to people that have owned or still own the previous generations of this bike, I can tell you that they are improving the system for each incarnation of this bike and others. So this DCT gearbox technology is on their Goldwing, the Honda Goldwing for example, which let's say is probably their flagship touring model. So all the feedback they're getting from those customers is coming down, trickling down into these other bikes with the DCT gearboxes, and I have to say it is very smooth and it does listen to you. So for example, if I just pin it, we're in 3rd now, it does help you to get on with it as I just showed you. So I personally think that all motorbikes should be having DCT gearboxes. It's so good. Now, it's not cold, it's 14 degrees, but let's show you how to do the quick button. So what I've done is this control unit here, if I hold it up, it takes me straight to my heated grips on the dash, and then I can go a couple of clicks on and back out of that menu. Now what I will say is my previous bike to this was a KTM 890 SMT. I did a bunch of videos on that, and the screen on this Honda, the way that it works, is considerably better in my opinion. So when you press a button, something happens instantly on the screen, whereas on the KTM there's definitely a lag, there's definitely a little delay. So I will say that Honda seem to have this system really well organised now, and I think I'm just going to stop. This is a bit of a traffic calming thing here. The red, I could go down the side, but that's actually a bicycle path, so I won't. I'll be normal and go this way. So I think really what I'm trying to say is that Honda's, all the controls up here are now really well thought out and really well designed, and they function really well, with a tiny exception, and that is on this side here, where the horn would be on most bikes is now a shift button, and I have definitely gone for the shift button instead of the horn before. And the only other thing that I will say is it's about the cruise control. So let's get around this corner and we'll discuss that. So you turn it on over here, so I'll use my thumb, it's now on, so it's now essentially activated, and that shows up here on the dashboard. So what you then do, let's get around this little awkward little bit of road where it could be dangerous. What you then do is you use the left hand control to set and reset and go up and down. So let's just do that. It works over 50 kilometres an hour or 30 mile an hour in the UK, I suspect. So we'll set it. So now we're at 61, and then obviously if you click up, it goes up, and once you click back down, it takes you back down to those speeds. The thing I like about it is that because it's an automatic essentially, you can be in any gear and it will engage the system, and it can change gear whilst activated, whereas on a manual bike, if you change gear, that will deactivate the engine speed. You know, that will deactivate the cruise control. So in some ways I'm in third gear now, fourth gear now, and if I go back to where I wanted to, so over 50 kilometers an hour, press resume, we're in fourth, it's took me to 60 and it's changed gear. You couldn't have done that on a geared bike. You would have had to have gone up and then done it, or it would have sat you in one gear below where you wanted to be. So I think that that's a positive. The way that I'm disengaging the cruise control, so it's now set, it's now got cruise control. I can pull any brake, so I've pulled the back brake now and it's now released it. Or I can, it's now engaged, I can throttle backwards. So if I throttle backwards, and now it's gone out. So either brake or throttling backwards will take you out of the cruise control. Quickly going to talk to you about wind protection. I'm 173 centimetres tall and I've got a 32-inch leg, and I find that this screen protects me very well apart from the tops of my shoulders. So that's about the only where I get the wind, and I believe that the reason for that is where you've got these cutouts on the screen here, and you've got those cutouts. Let me just stop here, because obviously the handlebars need to go up there, so that's why you've got those cutouts. So I think that's the only drawback to having this handlebar system with the handguards, is that you have to deal with the fact that it's slightly, you've lost a little tiny bit of wind protection. The handguards I've got on here are not Honda ones, but I suspect that the Honda ones do a very good job of protecting you from the wind. They come as a standard setup. I'll maybe post a picture in here, and then they're very thin, and you can get an extra bit that makes them taller. Other than that, the mirrors are very good. I can see a tiny bit of my arm on either side, and the vision, the amount of things I can see is perfect. So mirrors is definitely a good plus point on this bike, as is the wind protection from the screen. The other thing that's probably worth talking about is just the weather protection from the bike itself. So because you've got this big frontal area, if it does start to get a bit cold and wet, you can bring your feet in off those pegs and tuck in behind. There's also some extra wind deflectors that you can buy that go on the side. I've got them, I haven't fitted them yet, and I suspect that what happens then is the wind gets pushed out around your legs a bit more. At the moment I can feel the wind on the edge of my lower legs, but if I really tuck in like this, I'm properly out of the weather. So you can sort of hide behind the bike for weather protection. That said, sometimes you want to cool down, and then if I drop the screen, you'll probably hear the wind noise pick up, and now I've got this nice cool air which fills my helmet up, which cools me down, and I get a little tiny bit on my chest, and so I think the screen works really well in both directions. So this is an 80 km/h road, so let's just do a pull from standing start. So I'm going to nail it. So there you go, 0 to 80 km/h. Well, that was pretty fast. So because you've got no worries about changing gears, it gets on with it. So the other day somebody mentioned on a Facebook group or something about the DCT gearbox being no good because you can't go, how are you going to get around hairpins, for example? Now it's really just the same as a motorbike. So instead of having a clutch, it's got a clutch built in, so all you're actually really doing is feathering the back brake as you would do on a standard configuration. So let's do that. So literally I'm just going to do a little U-turn in the road here. So I'll pull away and I want to turn, and I've got put my back brake on, look where I want to go, bit of revs, and I've done it. So what they were saying was, what about when you're doing a hairpin? Well, I don't think there's any problem. Look how slowly I can do it, even with a bit of gravel there, no problem whatsoever. So do you really need a clutch? Not really, not when the bike's doing it for you. So there you go. That's how a clutchless bike changes gear without a clutch, even though it's got a clutch. So what about braking? Let's talk about that. So I'm going to just, we're doing 60 km/h here. I'm going to only using the front brake. Let's see how quickly we can stop. So there we go, pretty quick. And I was using my common sense there and not completely pulling on the brake. I didn't have to use ABS. And then we can do the same test again from 60 km/h. And this time I will use my back brake and my front brake. So let's give that a little go. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. There we go. So I had the rear ABS was kicking in a little bit there, I think. Or certainly you could feel it on the left lever, which is the brake lever in this instance. So the brakes, in my opinion, are very good. It is a little bit of a spongy-ish feeling on the front brake, well, on both of them, but I don't think it's any more or less spongy than other bikes that I've ridden, bearing in mind that all of the braking system on this bike is of motorbike, you know, pedigree. This whole scooter, all the bits on it are basically from the 750 motorbike version, so no problems with braking. Incidentally, because I've ridden a lot of scooters and I've got used to my brakes being up on the levers like this. I seemed to tend to use my back brake more on a scooter than I would on a motorbike, and that's exactly the same for this bike. And it's nothing really to do with the braking itself, the quality of the braking. It's just what I've personally got used to. So I think that you could quite easily ride this bike and never need that lever at all if you didn't want to. The brakes are plenty good enough. So thanks very much for watching this little review of my 2025 Xadv 750. If you've got any questions, please comment down below and I will answer them. And if there's anything I've missed in the video that you want to know about, let me know in the comments and I'll make a little video showing whatever it is that you want to know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.